So, Farron, before we leave the question of the primaries in Florida, we should also make the point that John McCain won his primary in Arizona, eked it out. He seems to go through that a lot. The real question is what's it going to look like for him in the general election. He's got a pretty tough Democrat to run against, and of course he's sort of boxed in with his continued support for Donald Trump. But you raised a good point at the break about the Democrats making a similar problem as they did in 2014.
Well, it's just really interesting. I remember going on the air right after, the day after the 2014 elections, talking about the fact that the mistakes that were made in that election were a huge teachable moment for the Democrats if they paid attention. And what it was in 2014, we had these corporatist Democrats running for House and Senate seats all over the country. Most of them refused to embrace any kind of progressive policy. And even beyond that, were running away from the accomplishments that Obama had made. They didn't want to talk about the good things about the Affordable Care Act. Some of them were open to, maybe we should make some cuts to Social Security. Some of them in favor of the Keystone XL pipeline. And because of that, because they were running away from progressivism and even just frankly, Democrats themselves, they were walloped in 2014. And so we had these lessons. We have the evidence, the historical context here. And yet here we are 2 years later doing the exact same thing. And it's not just the voters. It is, as you pointed out last segment, the Democrats in the Senate who are pushing certain candidates over other ones. They don't want to be, don't want to have people to the left of them like Schumer. So they want these more corporatist type because they know that because of Donald Trump, how he is harming down ballot Republicans, it's easier to win this year. But, that could change. We're 2 months out, anything could happen. It's kind of unlikely, but they think it's a little bit safer this year, and it's only because they didn't learn anything from those 2014 elections. The only plus side is that, just like in 2014, yesterday, we also did see some good progressive ballot initiatives get passed in Florida, tax break for solar energy. So we could be looking at a similar situation like we saw in 2014 with that as well.
Yeah, let me just add to this, too, because, look, the problem the Democrats have in off-year elections is simply you have a huge block of their reliable voters, reliable on an on-year election, on a presidential election, just don't show up. And the big challenge for Democrats is how do you motivate people to get out? But and so there may be a difference between 2016 and 2014 in terms of turnout because of that. But with that said, you're right that we are seeing the same failure of the Democrats, and part of this is maybe as a function of Donald Trump. But part of it is also, that they're able to get away with it or they think they can get away with it, Donald Trump. But there is yet to be, and we saw this from Bernie Sanders. I could ask just about anybody whether they agreed with him or not. What was Bernie Sanders' overall message? Right? It was the corruption of our electoral process, broadly speaking, by money. And it was wealth inequality. I think, to a person, you would get that response. Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, have yet, and this is not just a messaging thing, although to a certain extent they have yet to espouse an overall proactive sentiment and perspective and principle that can be shared and interpreted by down ballot races across the country. So you come up with some broad principles that down ballot races can espouse. But there is nothing. Right now, Hillary Clinton is just basically arguing, and this is not necessarily an incorrect argument, that Donald Trump is fundamentally unfit to be president. And I couldn't agree more that Donald Trump would be a disaster for the country and also for progressives. I couldn't agree more. She's arguing that at the very least, she's better. Well, I couldn't agree more. She's there. No one could be worse than Donald Trump. The problem is that when you look at these down ballot races, They can't run on that. They need someone at the top of the ticket who is making a cohesive argument now on a policy by policy basis. Clinton, I think from a progressive perspective, you can question, and past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but you can question as to her level of sincerity. But from a rhetorical and from an issue standpoint, she's saying all the right things from a progressive standpoint, but there is no broader overall sort of progressive message that would drive people out to the polls. She is not pushing that because I think to a certain extent, maybe she's right, maybe she's wrong. And, we know even from the DNC leaks, from WikiLeaks, right, that she is disassociating the Republican Party from Donald Trump. Well, that hurts down ballot races, and that's a real problem because if the Democrats don't get back at least the Senate, a lot of the most compelling reasons to vote for Hillary Clinton on a proactive level go out the window.